hours. What are you doing here?
I'm glad I found you. Do you work here?
I do not.
You're locked in then, like me.
Accident?
Unfortunately.
So what are you gonna do?
What do you mean, me? Don't you want to get out of here?
Not particularly.
Why not?
Listen, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm kind of busy.
What are you doing?
What does it look like I'm doing? Studying.
So, did you get locked in here on purpose?
It's more like I just made sure I wasn't found when they took a last turn through the library.
Why?
You're really starting to bother me. Haven't you found a way out by now?
I think no, I'm stuck. Everything's locked.
Break a window?
I think they're bulletproof.
Why in God's name would a library need bulletproof windows?
There's plenty of things we're stealing in here.
Just keep looking. There must be a way out. Good night.
No, I don't think so. Besides, I'm starting to think it wouldn't be so bad to be stuck in here overnight. The library will open up in the morning, and until then, it's a perfect place to spend the night.
Maybe I haven't made myself clear enough. I'm a bit busy.
Yeah, you made that clear. I can't help but wonder, though, what are you doing, and why can't you do it during normal hours?
They keep these particular books in the back. Only certain people are allowed to use them.
Is this a habit of yours? Camping out in libraries after hours?
I wouldn't call it a habit. I've only been at it for a week or so.
If the books come from behind the desk, what are you doing down here in the basement?
Look at the titles on the walls.
Let's see. Frost, Longfellow, Poe, Eliot. So we're in poetry?
Exactly. Nobody bothers to come down here anymore. People just don't read poetry. Finally wised up and realized it's unnecessary drivel.
Seems a bit harsh.
The truth, though.
Sound like you don't care much for ideas.
Ideas are fine. Books on quantum physics, the history of the Civil War, biography of JFK, all fine. Fables, poems, romance, forget it. None of those things are worth the paper they're printed on.
What's wrong with romance?
It doesn't exist, for one thing.
Really? You think so?
Of course. Soulmates, fate, star-crossed lovers, I don't buy it. Love is just a word people use to dress up a purely animalistic instinct.
Reproduction is only part of it.
It's the whole thing. Humans are driven by a need to spread their genes across the earth. The only reason the concept of love exists at all is because people have a hard time thinking of themselves as smart animals.
So you'd have sex with any random person because there's no such thing as love and reproduction is all that matters?
That's not what I said.
So how do you decide who you want to have sex with and who you don't if you're not using love as a determining factor?
I don't really feel comfortable discussing how I choose my sexual partners with you. I don't even know your name.
Cameron. Oh, like the Decemberist song?
Parents were real big fans. Have we met before? You seem familiar to me.
I don't think so, unless you've seen me at this library. Apple? Oh, this is gonna be complicated. Apple? I'll get another.
No thanks. I don't eat them anymore.
Apple allergy?
In a way.
Very cryptic.
Why were you at the library tonight?
Oh, just doing some light reading. I've always found libraries rather comforting places. Something about the quiet and the dust and the musty book smell makes me feel as if I'm safe from the outside world. Libraries just seem so forgotten by the reality of our life, and it's almost escapism. Anything can happen here. Anything.
To each his own.
I suppose. Find anything useful in those books?
I did, actually.
Care to elaborate?
Not really.
Listen, Val, we're gonna be here until 6 or 7 in the morning, and it's 9:47 right now. We've got a long night ahead of us. Keep acting this way, and we'll run into things to talk about real fast.
I don't believe I asked for your company. And anyway, why don't you just use your cell phone to get some help? That way you can go home, and I can get some peace and quiet.
No service.
Did you check the other parts of the library?
Val, I come to this library about once a week. I know that I don't get service in here.
You're not really going to sit there and talk to me all night, are you?
What else am I supposed to do?
I don't know. Read a book?
Val, really, I'm a nice guy. Trust me a little bit.
You've hardly given me a reason to.
And I haven't given you proof that you should. Now, what were you saying about your reading?
I was researching death.
Rather morbid subject.
Here's the part where I tell you something personal about myself, and you shut your mouth and listen. There's not any apple allergy. I hardly believe such a thing is possible.
There are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy.
As much as I commend your sublime quoting of the bard, I can't help but think you don't listen very well.
Hamlet, you're a student.
Was a student, and now we've completely gotten away from it.
Do continue.
The reason I don't eat apples isn't because I'm allergic. I don't eat them because they remind me of my father. He died last year picking apples. It was so sudden and strange. He fell from the ladder and broke his neck. They said he never had a chance. I was away at college when my mother called me. When I got home for the funeral, I was told we couldn't have an open casket. I wanted to see him, but my mother refused. So, just before the guests were due to arrive, I cracked open the lid just to see him one last time. And you know what the strangest part was? How very high the collar of his shirt was. Like there was something to hide under all that starch. Did you have something you wanted to say?
Only something positively relevant.
Well, don't keep me in suspense.
Dead men tell no tales?
Clever. A regular comedian you are. But you're wrong, you know. In the last moment I had with my father, I pulled the collar away from his neck ever so slightly, and underneath his clothing, his skin was bruised purple and red and covered in great festering lumps. My father was a healthy man with no prior afflictions. I'm not so inclined to believe he died only of a broken neck, if it was broken at all.
You said he passed away last year. So why do this now? You've known all this time and had these suspicions, so why wait?
I didn't want to wait, but there's so much to take care of after he died. His bookkeeping skills are positively shameful. He left us with so much debt, it took me several months to figure everything out. I had to leave school to look after my mother. She took it so hard, poor creature. Had to convince her to sell the house. She'd just sit there day after day, staring at his armchair, as if expecting his ghost to materialize in it.
I'm so sorry for your loss. My condolences.
Thanks. I know now that he must have been murdered, and then the murder covered up. But who killed him and why? Who paid off the police and the medical examiner to keep quiet about what they saw? Even the undertaker, he was in on it. My father's throat was purposefully obscured.
So what are you going to do now? What did you find in those books?
Some very rare poisons that seem to produce similar symptoms in the victim. They're quite uncommon and probably haven't been seen in this part of the world in several decades.
Like snake venom or spider? Or maybe like a plant toxin?
Snake, I think.
Some sort of tapin?
How'd you know that?
I like snakes. I also spent some time in Australia. A tapin is about the most deadly variety in that part of the world.
Interesting. Well, I imagine a concentrated amount of venom would kill quite quickly. But how to prove it?
Sound like you need a private investigator.
Yes, that had occurred to me. A lawyer, too. Unfortunately, I'm a little spread thin.
I'd be able to recommend one to you. He'd probably work for a reduced price.
Really? Just how do you know this person?
I'm a court reporter, and he's a friend. And he's not as heartless as the rest.
Tell me, how exactly does one become a court reporter?
It varies. I took the road less traveled.
Which is?
That's a boring story.
You've heard mine. I think it's only fair.
It isn't important, though. We're discussing your father's murder, for God's sake.
Cameron.
Do you have any suspects? Anyone with the motivation to want him dead?
My father was a judge. I say there are plenty of people with his name on their shit list.
And true enough. But any who really stick out? I mean, they have to be somebody clever and with connections.
There is one, but I don't have a real clear idea of what happened.
Why not?
A few years back, I remember my father took away an attorney's license, something about improper behavior in court. But that's all there is, no mention of what the transgression actually was.
Do you know the name?
Mark, no. I don't know why this incident seems so significant to me. I mean, it happens every day, yeah?
Not really. It does happen, but it's not very common.
There's so much work involved in being a lawyer. To just have it stripped from you like that, it's gotta hurt. All those years of schooling just wasted.
Life's like that. One minute you're sailing along, and the next everything you've ever known is gone. Just like that.
Curious, isn't it? How we never imagine our lives will go the way they do. I mean, when I woke up this morning, I never imagined I'd find myself locked in a library with a stranger.
I'm sure strangers isn't the proper adjective for us anymore.
Well, we're not friends.
I disagree.
I don't know the first thing about you.
You know how I make my money.
But you don't know how I make mine.
You work at a newspaper.
What?
The way you take notes, it's a bit of a shorthand. Journalists use it a lot. Is that what you were doing at school?
How did you know that?
Very observant and an excellent guesser.
Now you're going to tell me that while you're a mild-mannered court reporter by day, by night you're a modern-day Sherlock Holmes?
Well, I wouldn't say I could hold a candle to Mr. Holmes, but I'm pretty intuitive. It's a real crowd pleaser at parties.
I bet you're a riot.
I've gotten more than my share of dates that way.
I hope you don't believe I'm so easily charmed.
You're not a common girl. I wouldn't expect you to be drawn in by my sophisticated humor, literary breadth, and quick fingers.
Well, maybe the last one.
Care for a demonstration?
We barely know each other.
Not as if it matters. And if there's no such thing as love, why bother to jump through all the hoops of a courtship? Separate introduction, riotous hormones, and...
Oh, don't